On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
For some reason, Hennis is insisting that we bring you a bit of culture this week. Well, you see, I think that in this increasingly decadent world in which we all find ourselves, a spot of culture and moral and spiritual enlivenment would be a good thing, especially if you're a small yellow hen who lives behind the compost heap.
She lit a cigarette, both hands behind her back. Said she was hungry, lack of choice, so to that. Only you know what I'm really like. Only you know the way I feel tonight. She blamed excesses on American dreams, so seldom witnessed, never seen. Imagination will make a man of you. Imagination will make me love you too. Imagination is all I want from you.
Now that's what I call morally and spiritually enlivening.
I really like the old credits.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are again for another episode of On the Track. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, although I suspect you already know that, or else you wouldn't be tuned in to see what's happening. I really would find it massively amusing if somebody was tuning in not knowing what they were going to get and get confronted by Hennis introducing Richard and Wally the Comedy Rhinoceros and various other people singing a song rather peculiarly. But it's stuff like that that keeps me a happy fellow. And you wouldn't want me not to be a happy fellow, would you? Okay guys, years ago Richard and I used to play this game back in Holland Court. But now I'm going to play with you two. What's the cryptid most likely to exist?
The Tasmanian wolf.
Agreed.
Why, how, where?
Well, we know it definitely did exist up until the mid-30s. There have been consistent reports of it ever since, about 4,000 now, including one by a park ranger, one by a zoologist, one guy who I talked to who was employed by the government to go out and shoot feral cats and was an accomplished bushman. And the people who I interviewed had no axe to grind, no reason to lie, and they were very concerned about people knowing where it was, so they made me promise not to tell the exact locations of where these things were. It has been predicted by a computer program that the Thylacines is still alive. Dr. Henry Nix and his BioClim computer program, wherein you program in all the knowledge about a certain species, all the knowledge about a certain geographical range, and it matches them up, and it points out where in this geographic range the target species is most likely to be found. It was a research tool, and then he tried to run it on Tasmanian wolf sightings, and he found out that there was something like a 97% crossover between where Tasmanian wolves are being reported and where the BioClim program was predicting they should exist on Tasmania if they were still around. The computer's not got any interest in whether or not the thylacine is still around. It's just reporting the data. And there's lots of iconic extinct species: the Carolina parakeet, the great auk, Stella's sea cow, the dodo, possibly the most iconic extinct species of all. But people don't report seeing any of these because they're extinct. But people report seeing the Tasmanian wolf every year.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's most likely to be found, Carl?
Personally, I think the most likely place for the Tasmanian wolf or the thylacine would be Papua New Guinea, and not because of the outstanding testimonial evidence or anything like that, just for basically because of the ecology of the island is perfectly suited to them, and they could live there without being known, and it just makes more sense to me that they would be somewhere like that rather than Tasmania. Makes sense. Australia doesn't make much sense to me at all. But yeah, I would say if I had to bet my own money on it, I would say that the most likely place for the thylacine would be Papua New Guinea in the form of the Dobsenga.
What about you, Rich?
Yeah, nothing would surprise me in Papua New Guinea. It's a place I want to go to for so many reasons. Gigantic sacred crocodiles worshipped by tribes. Reports of monstrous lizards far bigger than the Komodo dragon. And reports of what the hill tribes call Dobsenga. They say it looks like a dog, but it has stripes down its back, and it comes down from the mountains and kills livestock, and they don't hunt it because it's taboo.
They say it had a pouch, didn't they?
Yeah, and they said you only find it in places where there's lots of prey species. So it's not something spiritual, it's something flesh and blood. And when they showed them pictures of the thylacine, they said, yeah, that's Dobsenga.
Yeah.
But also Western Tasmania is a good place because it's miles and miles and miles and miles where there are no human beings at all. It's dense forests, mountains, and virtually nobody goes there. And it's where the reports are coming from these days. They're coming mainly from the west of the island.
Yeah, I did a very basic statistical model at university only last year, and everything in that said that it would probably be in the southwest of the country. Which is funny because that's the area that didn't have any bounties taken.
Well, it's the southwest is lots of sort of tussock grass, which isn't an ideal habitat for them. But then again, animals under stress will move into places where you wouldn't normally associate them. Like the Bengal tiger in Bhutan, there's a population of them that live high up in the mountains, higher up than any other tigers. Well, nobody was expecting to find them.
Yeah.
And the west of the island, the southwest is also tussock grass, but the central west and the northern west is forest and mountain, an ideal habitat for the Tassie wolf.
The thing about the Tasmanian tiger though is that it went extinct before we'd sufficiently studied it. So there's lots of data that is deficient, and we can't guarantee certain things. So I don't know. I really don't know.
You said just now that you'd done a statistical analysis, Carl?
Very basic, yeah.
Can you explain for me, who still counts on my fingers, what is a statistical analysis?
It's just a statistical model, which he was talking about. You just apply all the data, and it basically works out for you roughly with mathematics where the animal is supposed to be. And it seems to imply that it's in the west of the country. My data said it was probably further south than that, but it wasn't accurate anyway. It was only a bit of fun.
What program did you use?
It was the university. It was their setup, their system.
I have been wanting to get hold of a copy of Bioclim for a long time. Haven't you, Richard?
Yes, I don't know if it's generally available or if it was just a research tool used by academics.
I haven't actually heard of Bioclim at all.
Well, you know what we have to do next?
Try and find Henry Nicks.
No, we have to phone her. Computer boy!
Don't call me computer boy!
What do you think would be the least likely cryptid in Papua New Guinea?
In Papua New Guinea? Oh, the least likely, non-avian dinosaurs for a start, like the row, which I think is completely made up because it had the head of a ceratopsian, the body of a sauropod, the plates, the back plates of a stegosaur, and the carnivorous nature of a Coelurosaur or a Carnosaur.
It's like a chimera.
Yeah.
Was that the one that was reported by Cannibal Miller?
Yes. He took his fiancée on their honeymoon to look for cannibals in New Guinea. I mean, if I ever get married, I hope my girl would like to do something like that. He only ever wrote one other book called Black Borneo, which I've no idea what it's about or anything about it. But I'd actually like to read his books just to see, to judge what else in them is accurate and what else is just made up nonsense.
I can't remember what's the one called, the New Guinea one?
The ropen.
No, the book.
Oh, the book, Cannibal Caravan, I think it was called.
Yeah, I've got it upstairs.
Oh.
It's bloody awful. It's a terrible book, but we've got it in the library.
I did not know
I
that.
think light-emitting ropens are pretty ridiculous.
Yes, I think people have. It's a mixture of people seeing frigate birds and planes at night.
And now it's time to introduce my next guest, a remarkable lady who's best known for her research into the lake monsters from Lake Champlain, a lake on the border between Vermont and Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to Miss Katy Elizabeth? So, my dear, it's lovely to talk to you at last.
Very nice to speak with you as well.
So tell me, how did you first get involved in Lake Champlain research?
Well, it started when I was 7 years old. I was watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. And back then, Robert Stack, his voice just made the program. And it always made it seem so eerie whenever that program would come on. And I always had a vast interest of the unknown, UFOs, hauntings. I mean, anything you could think of that's unknown, I just was completely fascinated with. And I was watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries that day, and I was 7 years old at the time. And I remember watching it, and they showed a picture on the screen of this dinosaur in a lake. And I was like, oh my God, where is this? I was just totally fascinated. And that photo was the photo that Sandra Mancy snapped in 1977 of Champ. And that's what struck my interest in Champ in particular and other lake monsters around the world. I went to my local library at school and I took out every book I could on Ogopogo, Nessie, and Champ as well. And at the time, the only book on Champ really was Champ Beyond the Legend by Joseph Zarzinski, a former Champ researcher. So that's what struck my interest in Champ.
So how did you start researching? What did you do? What were your first steps?
Well, let's see. I told my mom at the time, because we lived in the state of Rhode Island, which is about 4.5 hours from here on Lake Champlain. I live on Lake Champlain now. And at the time I said, Mom, I really want to go and find this dinosaur of sorts. And she said, well, how far away is it? And I said, 4.5 hours. And my mom wasn't the type of person to take anybody out to Disney or go on a long trip. So years and years go by. I never ended up getting up to Lake Champlain until 2012. And at the time, I was a paranormal investigator for an organization, and I was going out on ghost hunts. I was the case manager. And I remember I said, I really want to live my dream and go to Lake Champlain. And I didn't have any expectation of seeing anything, because there's been people here on Lake Champlain for many, many years who have never seen anything strange. So I said, well, I still want to live my dream and go to the lake and just see it in person. And in 2012, I made the trip up here. and went camping. And I had a few friends of mine. One was a paranormal investigator, and the other two were Bigfooters. They were Sasquatch researchers, and they had like no interest in Champ. They're telling me we have to go out and look for Bigfoot. And I'm like, I don't really care about Bigfoot. I want to do some lake monster research. So we were there for, I think it was 4 days. The first day, looking out on the lake, I just saw typical wakes and boats and the usual. And the second day I had gotten up around probably 10:30, which is really late for me. As you know, I get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning now. We were sitting out having breakfast, and I was sitting on a bench overlooking Button Bay, where there's been many sightings over the years. And I remember looking out and seeing this turbulence. I didn't think much by it, but then this hump rose to the surface of the water. And with my logical thinking, I said to myself, well, growing up in the ocean state in Rhode Island, I've seen whales, I've seen dolphins, I've seen otters, I've seen you name it. And this thing was it was quite large. There was a sailboat behind it, approximately, I would say 15 to 20 feet in length. And it almost took up the size of that sailboat. And I'm like, well, that can't be an otter. If it is, it's the world's largest otter. And it just started moving really slowly. And when it went faster, it started doing this crawl-like motion, like a caterpillar on a table. So I'm freaking out because I didn't have my camera on me. I didn't think I was going to see anything. So I ran to the car, I'm freaking out, grabbed my camera, and as I'm running back, it submerged and it was gone. And I was ready to throw my camera in the lake at that point. So I was really distraught. And I had heard sightings of the Champ animals out in the marsh systems and on land. And I said, well, why don't we go out on the trail tonight and just kind of check out the area? Maybe we'll see something. Who knows? I had no clue. And because that just really spiked my interest. I didn't see the romantic style of the head and neck moving along, nothing like that. But I know what I saw was not a log. It was not a wave. It wasn't any natural phenomenon that I'd ever seen before growing up on the water. So we had gone out on the trail and we're walking along, and all of a sudden we get this pungent odor in the air. And I turned and looked at one of my friends and I said, what the hell is that smell? And she's like, oh, maybe somebody urinated on the trail, jokingly. And I'm like, no, it does not smell like urine. It was like a very musky, pungent odor. So we kept walking on, and then we started hearing splashing. Now, the trail we were on at Button Bay, I had never been to that campground before, and I didn't know how far the shoreline was from the point where we were on the trail. So later on the next day, we did figure out how far it was, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But we were hearing this thrashing sound, and I know in Vermont we have moose. They're very rare in my area of Vermont because it's not heavily wooded here. I'm in the Champlain Valley, so there's not a lot of forest in this area. But I'm trying to be logical. I'm trying to think, what the heck could this sound be? And whatever it was really large. I'm not saying it was Champ, but whatever it was, it really made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So one of my friends, he's 6'4", very, very big guy and not afraid of anything. He's like, let's get the hell out of here. And they all start running. And I'm like, where are you guys going? Because I wanted to see what it was. So we had gone back the next day to the location, and there was a drag. It was the weirdest thing. It was like right where the trail was, there was some grass about 3 feet tall, and it almost looked like something had slithered down the embankment down to the beach. And I saw where the beach was, and I would say, going by meters, I would say it was probably, 15 to 20 meters from where we were on that trail. So whatever it was very large to make that much noise and to be that startling from that distance. Never did find any prints in the sand, but the water washed up. Any type of prints would have been washed away. So that was an interesting experience. But seeing more than hearing the day before, it just struck my interest. And I said, oh my God, this is so weird. The second day I'm here, I see something and then hear something. So that's what got the search going. I started getting, night vision cameras and hydrophone system and all kinds of equipment. And now I have a research vessel as well, and I've spent a lot of money on Champ, but it's my passion, is what I love.
And there'll be more from Katy in the next episode. Well, this is, after all, the CFZ, and I am sad to tell you that my clever two-camera system that Louis and I set up is broken. So, for this weekend, while I have as my special guest my old friend, the delightful Mr. Freeman, you're going to see us squeezed together into a cohesive but very friendly single frame. Richard, question. What's the significance of the Boris Porshnev book?
Well, the Russian polymath Boris Porshnev, who passed away in 1972, wrote in the late 60s a book called The Problem of Relic Hominids. Only 130 of them were ever printed, and it was never translated into English. I always wanted to get hold of the book and translate it. I tried to get a copy from the Moscow Library, but they wouldn't send an international book loan. But I managed to track down Porshnev's grandson or great-grandson, who's now living in the United States, and he had an early draft of the work, and he gave us his blessing to get it translated and printed in English as the first time. And our old friend Lars Thomas has been translating this, and it's not a thin book, and it's taken years to translate. I mean, absolutely years and years and years to get this thing off the ground, but at last here it is for the first time in English.
So Richard, tell me a bit about Porshnev.
Well, he's not that well known in the West, but in Russia he was a very well respected scientist, and he's one of these scientists that dabbled in all sorts of things, and history and sociology and biology. He wrote many books, and he lectured, and together with Peter Smolin of the Darwin Museum and Marie Jean Kaufman and Dmitry Bayanov, he formed the official Soviet Snowman Commission, which was a government-backed organisation that searched for relic hominins in the Pamirs and the Caucasus.
This is a remarkable piece of work, and it is a remarkable concatenation of effort by 3 or 4 different people to get it ready. It would have been finished several years ago, but I'm afraid my efforts in the last few years have been looking after Karina as she died. But I'm now moving on with my life. The CFZ is moving on with its life, and this book is now available for sale at a specially discounted rate through the CFZ website. So go and have a look on www.cfz.org.uk. In fact, Louise keeps on telling me that I don't have to use the word www anymore. But go check out the CFZ website, and there is a special offer there. So please go and have a look and buy this book. It is a fascinating document of a time which is fast becoming forgotten. Well done to all involved.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who is a regular visit to the studio, wants me to remind you, always remember to ring the notification bell. Otherwise, you won't be told when we've got a new show available. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just about it for this episode. I'd like to say a big, big thank you to everybody involved, particularly Louis, Graham, Richard and Carl, but for whom I wouldn't have been able to do any of this, and of course the lovely Katy Elizabeth. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to Maxine for keeping my head together during the last week, to Charlotte, who's just about to start. In fact, by the time you watch this, she will already have started her college course, and I'm looking forward greatly to hearing how it happened. And to Sarah, who, against all the odds, manages to keep the home fires burning here at the CFZ. So, until then, until when, you might ask? Well, this show may be over. This episode may be over, but you don't have long to wait. You've only got another 7 days to wait, because in 7 days' time I'll be back. Because Saturday afternoon at 3 it is On the Track time. And if you're going to be there watching it, well, I'm going to be there presenting it. So, if you're watching it, I'll be seeing you, conceptually at least.